Okay. Hi, Dean.
Hey, Barbara.
Okay, welcome to GlassRoots Virtual Studios. I'm Barbara Heisler, and on normal days you can find me in the offices at GlassRoots in Newark, New Jersey, where I serve as the CEO. GlassRoots is a glass art studio in Newark that works to ignite and build the cultural and economic vitality of our community through the glass arts. Since you can't visit our studios at this time, each day we're bringing you activities via Facebook, Instagram, and our website. Please be sure to sign up for our email list to get our full week schedule ahead of time by sending your email to info@glassroots.org and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm glad you're visiting with us today and joining us for our Through the Looking Glass Artist Talk series. If you were with us earlier this week for our Make It at Home challenge, you were introduced to the work of Dean Allison. And today you get to actually meet Dean, who's our guest today from his home and studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Welcome, Dean.
Good to be here, Barbara.
We're so glad to have you and the baby next to you.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago for our Make It at Home challenge, we were inspired by artist Jerry Gantz's My Artistic Left Hand, which is a glass casting of the artist holding a can of spray paint. And your practice, though, Dean, goes beyond casting to sculpting. So I'm wondering if you could tell us more about your work.
Well, I'm very interested in figurative art. I've always kind of been interested in trying to understand myself through people and relationships. So, as a kid, I loved to do cartoons and try to draw comic books, and that led into more kind of classical painting and sculpture and figure drawing, which then ultimately led to finding glass as an elective and using glass to mimic the characteristics of people, the human condition almost of being fragile and opaque and shattered sometimes, or stressed out, transparent. So I use glass mostly as a material. I'm trying to explore other mediums as well, but mostly glass. And I use a lot of processes. It's very process orientated. I take life molds. I also pair life molds with stuff that I've sculpted in clay or wax. But a lot of what I do is starting off with a life mold, making a wax from that life mold, which takes a positive out of that negative shell of a life mold, and then create a mold from that goes into the kiln and is heated up to high temperatures, and which then I can put glass into. That becomes a positive glass piece, and I can then peel away the layers, divest those layers of plaster silica or mold material around that glass out, and then finish the glass piece. So there's a lot of different processes involved in getting that glass sculpture out, and then finishing it is another realm of, the different avenues involved of what finishing techniques I can use, whether those be painting or pairing them with clay or concrete or whatever that might be needed for display purposes.
So folks can see a little bit about your starting process on the blog that you're posting on GlassRoots website,
right,
glassroots.org. And I think in those pieces, we can see you doing your initial glass, is it the mold stage where you're creating the negative over a person?
And so the GlassRoots project has been it's a very ambitious and the most ambitious projects I've taken. It's very large and it's very dynamic. So it's taking life molds and creating a very dynamic piece of two people working together in a very taxing situation, which is glass blowing. And so what the blog is going to show is basically from the start to finish. And obviously I'm not going to, I can't put every picture in because it's a lot of detail and it's a lot of tedium. So that would just, people would lose interest quick. So I'm very selective of what I'm putting on there, but it is a start from seeing the models that were chosen, taking those life molds, putting, we've had a good photographer take some of those pictures that we're pairing with some of the process shots that I'm doing on my own, and taking those life molds, creating a wax out of that, and then really refining the dynamic of the wax and the two figures together. And that's kind of where we're at right now. A lot of my work, the majority of the time, is on the wax work, and allowing the wax to do what it wants to do, which is very difficult to kind of stop and start and see where the wax itself wants to go and where the piece wants to go. So I'm working with that right now and trying to refine where the body should be at, and where the muscle groups kind of tense up and where they relax, and how the stage actually fits together. So it's to say the least, it's a very challenging project.
Yeah. Well, I'm really grateful that we have Mercedes Jelenik's photos to look at some of those stages, because it really is fascinating. And for those of us that aren't in Pittsburgh and can't stop into your studio, it's great to get a peek every once in a while.
She's a pretty captivating photographer. She's one of the best.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in this. We talk about at GlassRoots that we're a full STEAM studio. So we talk about science and technology and engineering and arts and math. And just hearing your stages, I mean, what you do is really all inclusive. I mean, you're doing engineering when you put together your pieces, but then even thinking about the muscle memory and all of the science of understanding, when you're modifying the wax, that you really can't just, drop the cheek like this, because that's not how anatomy works or something like that. Right. You really had to study quite a bit to put these sculptures together.
Well, it's study, and you do that in art school. That's one good thing about art school is you do a lot of anatomy work and figure drawing, but also just observing and just really paying attention and taking photographs. I take a lot of photographs of different muscle memories and trying to muscle groups and trying to see how those connect, and really just what feels natural, taking photos of the scene that I'm trying to do, and making the wax try to look like it hasn't been sculpted or put into a position that it doesn't want to be. So it's wax is not like clay, and the one process that I do is it's very similar to a bronze casting. It's a lost wax style of casting. And so I can't use clay for a lot of the processes that I do, because I can't get it out of the mold, and I don't want clay to be trapped in the glass at a later time. So using wax is the best avenue to get the results that I want. And clay doesn't act like wax, or clay and wax are very different. They sculpt a lot differently. And so clay is a little bit more forgiving, and wax is not. So it's a challenge. It's also very messy, and it sticks to you. It wants to get all over your house. It wants to remember exactly what you put into it, and it doesn't like to erase itself. So being additive and subtractive is it's a very time consuming. It's a practice in patience for sure.
Wow. So, well, you've talked a bit about your challenges. You talked about the challenges of the materials and just the art form itself. It's all, we talk about glass as teaching patience and resilience and persistence, and it sounds like you're tackling those both with the glass and the wax.
Yes, definitely. And, I think the biggest challenge to come is how the piece is going to get cut up and then joined back together. So like really how I'm going to reassemble the piece once it's done is going to be, I think, the most challenging part of this. And what I'd like to do is reach out to some of wood artist friends of mine and really talk joinery and try to figure that how the piece is going to be joined. as it comes to completion.
Yeah. Well, just for those that haven't looked at the blog yet, the piece that we're talking about is not the size of the baby next to you. It's really quite large, and I think you're going to be able to give us a little tour of your studio, and we can actually take a peek at the wax for that sculpture that you're creating for GlassRoots as well.
Yeah, I have a home studio, and then I also have a studio that's kind of down the road. And what I do in my home studio is mostly my wax and like kind of beginning mold work. So I do have, right now I'm in my home studio, and I have the wax with me, and I can kind of show you where it's at right now.
Great. Well, let's take a tour.
Okay. So some of the pieces I'm working on right now are basically just for certain shows that are coming up, but this is the piece right here. You can see the scale of it. It's if you can kind of see, you can see that the boy is going to be crouching down, blowing into the pipe right before he's going to kind of inflate the piece that will be at the end of the pipe. And basically where you're standing is where the glory hole would be. And she is basically kind of taking a breath, thinking about her next move, and going to go reheat the piece after when it's ready for that time. So I'm still kind of working on the refining of the wax, and how the tools are going to be, and where the cast of the piece on the end of the pipe. There's some other pieces kind of down here that I'm working on, and some life casts I'm working on. That's going to be the chair as well is going to be cast, and then you can kind of just see it's kind of a dirty wax working kind of sculpture ridden place. But then I'm also working on some like small little pieces where I'm working on some little baby feet for my brother, and I'm working on a commission of hooks that will hang in a doctor's office, and just some trying to figure out life casts with my daughter. So little pieces, and the piece that you see behind me, that's my first attempt at a digital scan of a small person that doesn't like to stand still, like my daughter when she was 6 months old. And we did the scan, and then basically I had that 3D printed, and then I made the molds from that, created the wax, created the glass, and that's going to be a kind of an edition of 5 called a kitchen floor series of a kid playing on the kitchen floor.
And that'll be at an exhibit at Habitat Galleries?
That's going to be Habitat's having a show called it's the Invitational, and they're having a show at the end pretty soon, within this month, and in the next week. And they have an array of fantastic glass work from all over the world, and they're having an online exhibit. So they'll have some videos, they'll have some process shots, they'll have some finished pieces. So these two will be in there too.
That's great. I actually got to see some of your pieces at Habitat down in St. Petersburg, and it was really fabulous to see several of your pieces together. It was a lot of fun. I'm interested in kind of, you do opaque, you do translucent, you play with color. Do you make your own color, right? You mix your own color?
My glass, one of my heroes in art in general, but in glass specifically, is Mark Peiser. And he's kind of been a mentor and just a really good friend to me. So he's kind of relayed a lot of the knowledge of chemistry in glass to me. So that's something I have nowhere near the knowledge that he has, but I'm just starting to learn about that. And I make a lot. I've been making my own color and glass now for probably the last 7, 8 years. And I'm starting to get a handle on it. I make the glass. I kind of pair the glasses together. It allows me to make a much richer palette, and it's a lot more sustainable. It actually is a lot cheaper to make my own glass. Takes a lot more thought and a lot more kind of research and writing formulas. But it's in the long run, it broadens my spectrum of what I can do, and the failures that I might have. So.
Well, it's that marriage of science and art again. I should mention to our audience that we're actually doing this interview via Zoom, but we're streaming out live to Facebook. And so people may be asking questions and we can't see them because we're on Zoom. But hopefully we'll both visit. I'm sure there's people saying, ask this question, but unfortunately I can't see what your questions are. So if there are, I'm sure we'll visit them later and try to provide some answers to people.
Okay.
So this week, our theme for our virtual studios is relaxation.
Okay.
And, you know, I don't usually work at home. I usually work at an office. So when I leave my office, I'm able to leave work. But here you are, not only in this unusual time, but even in normal times, while you do have an offsite studio, you have a studio downstairs. How do you separate from your work? How do you shut off? How do you relax while you're in the middle of a major piece, or, you know, or just because you know your work's downstairs?
I mean, I think it's a challenge, but I think pertaining to work in general, I like to walk away from projects and start another project. So I usually have a lot of different things going on at one time, and that are all in different stages. One could be just starting a life cast. One could be, you know, multiple waxes going. I usually have a lot of different waxes going at one time. I have different stages of the investment mold making going. I have pieces that I want to finish. And so I kind of like stop one project, go into another project, because I'm very involved with not only the model, but the piece and where the piece is going. And it changes a lot while I'm working on it. It doesn't always become what I wanted it to become. So, really just walking away, when I'm talking about work, walking away, you know, making a phone call, always listening to music. You know, those are usually the avenues I have when I'm working. It's just to start something new and switch projects.
Is there certain types of music that you find easier to work with, or that take you away from the work?
I think it really depends on just the mood and where I'm at and the things that I've experienced in the day. I mean, I love all sorts of music, anything from, you know, jazz to blues to old country to hip hop to you name it. I enjoy it. It just depends on the mood of the day, really. And jazz usually seems to or classical obviously can be something that really kind of, if I really just need to have not any kind of words or just kind of some melodies in the background, those usually work pretty good.
Yeah, I see that GlassRoots, I'm sorry, not GlassRoots, always on my mind GlassRoots, but Pittsburgh Glass put out a Spotify glass playlist.
Oh, great.
So maybe we should start a regular series of asking during these interviews, what's on your playlist?
Yeah, and it's hard. It changes. I think you know, with information and different technologies changing, that also changes. Like I used to always have playlists, and now it's, you know, you listen to something on Spotify or one of those you know, one of the apps, and then that kind of you select something and it plays a whole range of other things that are like it. So it's I think how we listen to music is changing, and there's so much changing and so much unknown. So yeah.
So it's been fun to talk with you. Thanks for giving us a peek of your studio. So audience, I'd like to put out a reminder that each day we bring activities via Facebook and Instagram and our website. Just a reminder that if you want to get a sneak peek ahead of time of what's coming up, sign up for our email list. We send out an email every Sunday night with our full list of upcoming activities for the week. And, you know, this has been a challenge, trying to figure out how to make glass accessible via streaming and our social medias. You know, we think of glass as being such a tactile material that you want to touch it and look closely at it. So we appreciate that you gave us this peek, Dean. We've been providing our virtual studios free of charge to our students and to our larger community. And if any of our viewers are able to make a gift to support our ongoing operations, they are welcome to make a donation on our website at glassroots.org. But we're just really happy to be operating right now and to be able to bring great artists like you to our community via the internet. So thank you so much for being with us today. I look forward to talking with you. I look forward to seeing what happens on your blog on glassroots.org. And of course, sometime in 2021, we'll have a great unveiling of the sculpture that you're creating for the new GlassRoots space.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, so are we. So are we. Thanks again, Dean. Thanks to you all at home for watching. And until next week, this is Through the Looking Glass. Take care.